Nobody rocks the cock like Krysta Now. Hello, y'all. Welcome to another rant. The last one I did was Showgirls, and it's the first video I've done under quarantine. So, yeah, things have been really hectic lately, crazy. But I'm back making another video, and I think that in this time. I think we all need to distract ourselves with entertainment, books, film, music, art, culture, the whole shebang, right? So I took it to myself to sort of go, okay, I'm going to at least try to make one video, watch a movie, and, try to, talk about and, interact with you guys. In terms of, like, my other content, like my base covers and, various other things, I'm putting a hold on that for a while because, honestly, I think that I want to take my content in different directions and sort of make videos what I'm passionate about right now. If I made a base cover, I don't think I would be happy making that type of content. So I think it's best to sort of like divvy it up and, kind of get a variety and sort of explore where my mind wanders and stuff like that. So, ignoring all that, today's video is about the second film by director Richard Kelly, Southland Tales. It premiered at a Cannes Film Festival in 2006, and it released theatrically in 2007. So it's kind of like people debate if it's 2006 or 2007. I just say 2007 because that's when it was theatrically released. But barring that, the film's plot is essentially US Ident is trying to sort of surveillance people through technology, and basically a bunch of different celebrities and people are trying to stop them. That is like the most simplistic way I could sum up this plot. Because if you've seen the movie, then you know that there's a ton of shit going on in this thing. Like, absolutely haywire. It's a very dense movie, but I'm here today to make some sense of it. Yeah, that's right. The movie that no one said you can make sense of, I'm about to make sense of. So, Southland Tales. What do I think of it? I think it's a film that, when I first saw it, I couldn't really say if I loved it yet. I liked it from my first viewing, but I couldn't say that I could call it a masterpiece or call it a fantastic film. I had to ruminate about it, think about it a bit more, and come to my own sort of conclusion about it. And then over the years, as I discovered more about it, meditated about it, it's definitely become one of my favorite films of all time. And it's one that I repeatedly go back to and get something out of as the years go by. And I think one of those reasons, and probably the most simplistic reason for me liking this film, is because I love all the characters so much. They're just full of life, and each character will have something I can relate to in. Like Boxer, he's very sort of stone-faced, very lacks confidence, doesn't know how to like sort of interact with people, and I kind of feel like that from time to time. I feel the way Boxer feels, and not that I've like had amnesia or anything, but I feel sort of complacent to be like Boxer is sometimes, and I can relate to him in that way. And then you have someone like sort of Krysta, who's exuberant, confident, sort of indulges in a lot of hedonism and stuff like that. So I sort of see myself in the fact that she's so like headstrong and like just doesn't really give any fucks about what Fortunio thinks, what Frost thinks, what anyone thinks. So I kind of admire that, and I see myself in her too. And the list goes on. I could name check every single character in this, and I could see a part of myself. So the emotional connection for me is there from the outset, ignoring the whole plot and everything that happens in the film. The next thing that I love about this film and how Precedent it was in terms of being this sort of time capsule, but also being ahead of its time. So it captures Bush anxiety very well, and it has such a grasp on the now and the future, and it just coalesces into this art piece that's just really engaging and really sort of, transcendent to watch, if I can be blunt. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. Like, the fact that this film was so ahead of the ball on how celebrities would interact with politics and how people don't want celebrities interfering with their political beliefs, and how that sort of you know comes to a head point, and it creates so much animosity and so much turmoil within the public consciousness. And I think Southland Tales really hits the nail on the head. Now, in terms of like specific scenes in the film that I think does do this very well, I think the beginning scene with Fortunio when he's watching the TV screen and he's viewing Krysta Now's talk show, and he's sort of like going like he says like there's no change in society without feminist upheaval, in a very sort of misogynistic and biting tone, sort of to mock Krysta. And I think that he doesn't like things spoke down to him. He doesn't like his opinion to be changed by some leftist progressive. And Fortunio sort of echoes the modern consciousness of people when they see celebrities sort of shove down politics down your throat. And I think it's very well done. It's done in this very sort of cheeky, sort of tongue-in-cheek way. And it's very satirical. And I think that's the one thing this film does well, satirical. Not only like satirizing like the anxiety of the time, but also Hollywood and the genre it's portraying is also being made fun of. And I think The Rock's character, Boxer Santaros, is very enigmatic, or it signifies a lot of like action stars, action roles that The Rock will get at the time, like let's say The Scorpion King, or I think it's The Rundown. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the two films that come to mind of those two films, and it shows a willingness to sort of poke fun at his own persona and sort of go headfirst into this really lack of confidence sort of character. And it's so well done, and I end up feeling engrossed every time I watch the film because his performance is absolutely fantastic and really sort of sells this really amnesiac sort of helpless baby. Like, Boxer Santaros is a baby, really. Like, he has very few words. He's very lost. He's trying to like figure out what's happening in this world, and he struggles to, at least until the very end, which is something I will come to later and have a bit of a discussion about. Now, I think one of the things I want to talk about in this rant is the plot, and more so how the plot services the movie and why it is, something to be marveled at least in my opinion. Now, on first watch, I would not be surprised if you could not understand a thing that happens in this movie. And partially, I think that's the reason, is that it has so many different subplots and so many things that interconnect together that it can be quite hard to like piece the pieces together and sort of make something coherent out of it. And by design, I think that's what Richard Kelly intended. Now, I think this movie really replicates the confusing nature of politics to me. I feel like when you first approach politics, like, Republicans, Democrats, etc., you don't know what's happening, you're so confused, you can't make any sense of it, and it's only through reevaluation and going back to it and learning more that you sort of make sense of it. And I think that's what Southland Tales represents for me. A film that starts out sort of like, I love the images and the themes and the social, ideas behind the film, but I don't necessarily get the plot, at least not yet. And Southland Tales does that to such a T. It does it so well that it really kind of astounds me every time I watch it, how on the mark it is with that feeling. And I wouldn't be remiss to mention, it takes influence from Thomas Python, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and it has sort of a postmodernist riffing on modernist thought, that goes throughout the film, And, you know, a lot of the dialogue, it's supposed to be over the top. It's supposed to be a bit trashy because it's trying to sort of poke fun at modernist thought and celebrities and, you know, but it's never done in a stupid, uncharming way. It's always done in a really stimulating, thought-provoking way, which is such a hard thing to balance. I think Richard Kelly really hit that balance on the head here. And throughout the film, we see things progress and things get to a head and things get so chaotic. Like, it's amazing that a person made this film. In every single frame, there's something happening. In every single second, there's some new plot, some new memorable thing being introduced. And that's what's so amazing to me about it, is that there's so much happening, yet it feels so holistic and so direct with its intent. And that's the magic of this film to me, is that it manages to be all over the place, yet so focused in its incoherency and its coherency. It toes a very fine line, and I think that's what people don't give credit for this film with. And I think if people sort of sat down with it, knew what to expect, then, you know, I think they would be less harsh on it. I really do. And I think the satirical elements really sort of elevate the film beyond maybe what it could have been as a bare bones plot. You know, I think that really adds to the film as a whole. Now, tying to what I just talked about with the plot, I think one of the things that I noticed on a rewatch for sure is the title generator's effect on the characters in the film. And what I mean by this is the fluid karma. It sort of slows down the Earth's gravitational pull, and it created a time rift in the Earth because of the effect of fluid karma. And so this affects how the characters sort of behave and interact. They sort of go more and more insane as the film goes on. And not only do the characters go more insane, but the world as a whole goes more insane. And this coalesces in the end, which gets the most surreal, the most crazy, and the most beautiful. And once you realize what it's doing, this film is absolutely masterful in terms of taking what starts out as a very expository sort of crime, sci-fi experience, and it turns into this surreal, beautiful sort of painting by the end that uses music and sound and imagery to sort of coalesce in this beautiful mirage of ideas. And honestly, it feels like an out-of-body experience. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It feels so endowed and so in line with my own sensibilities that I can't help but love it. It's such a amazing thing to watch. And I could totally get if you're not into it, if it's either too much or it doesn't cohere to you or it doesn't sort of, you know, it's not your thing essentially. I totally get that. But for me, I always feel compelled by it, by the characters, by the events, by the emotional pull. It just brings me in, and I think that's why I love it so much. It's just such a amazing experience from front to back. And it's one of those films is when I finish it, I feel like rewatching it after, straight away, because I just want to have that experience again from front to back. It's so engrossing. And for a nearly 2.5-hour film, that's amazing. That's an amazing achievement. And I think that's what this film does very well. Now, since I'm like talking about the ending, I may as well go into specifics. So essentially, the memory gospel dancers, towards the end, they're on the Mega Zeppelin, and you know they're doing some performance on the Mega Zeppelin. So the memory gospel dancers come out, and they do this dance, and it's already really entrancing and really beautifully visually. And then all of a sudden, Boxer comes on the stage and joins them, and starts doing this sort of poetic dance, and it brings us a moment where these characters sort of come to terms with each other and accept each other for who they are and settle their differences. And they don't even say it outright. Not really anyway. They just dance and they just look in each other's eyes, and the closest you ever get to them acknowledging it verbally is when Krysta says, "It had to be this way." And that sort of sums up the film. If you had to pick up one line in this film that would sum up this film, it would be, "It had to be this way." And I wouldn't be remiss in mentioning Madeline, who joins Boxer towards the end of the dance. And she's the most stuck up in the film for sure. She's very skeptical about what's happening. Her husband's disappearing, run off of a porn star. So, she's not very happy. She's not happy, Jan. So she comes up and she dances with the both of them and sort of confides in them and goes, you know what? I might not agree with how this went and, you as a person, but I can at least put that aside and just celebrate being human together. Like she finally decides to accept them for who they are. And I think that's such a beautiful message to send and it's done in such a artistic, poetic way. And I think that is definitely something that I've seen even its detractors of the film say is a good scene, that dance scene towards the end. Like its detractors at least say that that's a beautiful mind-bending sequence. And yeah, it's just emotionally powerful, and it's definitely probably my favorite part of the movie. It's definitely my favorite scene in any film ever, and I think Richard Kelly is very, very, and I want to say another very expert in sort of portraying his ideas in a very esoteric but emotionally, connecting way. And I think that's what this whole film is to me, from start to finish. It's a very emotionally involving experience. It's not really something that everyone would enjoy, but it's something I do enjoy. And with this film, there's so much I could talk about, like, the Baron, and Serpentine. That whole subplot is completely different. Like, it's obvious that Baron's, pulling the strings, and that Krysta sort of, basically fucked over Boxer by, bringing him back to the Southland and sort of extorting him to sort of win votes for, the Marxism, and sort of basically fuck him over in the end. And, you see that firsthand. And, as I said before, the dance sort of like, sort of comforts that and sort of, brings it to an emotional climax. But, there's that whole subplot. There's all these, like, little scenes that happen in it that add to the world and gradually build up. I haven't even talked about Taverner, which is like a subplot where, they want him to be a racist cop to, similarly get Proposition 9 passed so the government can't, basically screw with their private lives. And, it all comes to a head by the end. And I think that, even thinking about it now, the rant I've done today is very similar to the film in that it makes sense, but it's also so all over the place, and it lacks coherence, but it is coherent. You know what I mean? And I think going into this rant, I wanted, my rant to sort of echo that sort of quality and sort of pay ultimate homage to the way this film is done. I would love to do a Southland Tales analysis properly, like with a script and, well thought out and tackles everything. It would have to be really long, because I don't feel like I could do this film justice if I just talked about it for, just for 10 minutes. I would have to go for like an hour or 2 hours just to like sort of break it down. And a lot of it wouldn't even be breaking down the plot and making sense of it. It would be sort of talking about the themes and the social messages that the film has. And I think that's where my analysis would go. So I don't know when that would come out, maybe sometime in the future, but it'd definitely be something I would love to do. So before I close out this rant, I'd love to show you the Southland Tales sort of like merch I've got. So I've got this book. It's the prequel saga. So essentially Kelly wrote a prequel saga to the film. So the first three parts of the film as a whole is in these graphic novels, and the last three parts of the film itself. So it's a really nice book, and the stories, I don't think it's as good as like the film proper, but it does do a good job of, setting up the film. And, as if you can see, some of these illustrations are really nice to look at. There's some scripts from The Power, which is the script that, Boxer and Krysta are writing in the film. And yeah, it's really nice. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite of my memorabilia of Southland Tales, and yeah, I've only read this once, but I should reread it at some point. Oh yeah, and look at this nice page spread. It's really nice. The next one is I've got the soundtrack on CD, so this has all the songs like Wave of Mutilation, Howl, Moby, some of Moby's score, and most importantly, teen horniness is not a crime. Open up your heart and your mind. This is the spread of the album. You can see there's a nice little insert of all the characters. And the last one is the DVD, the Southland Tales DVD. So yeah, if you want to check out Southland Tales for yourself, then go on Mubi. They're showing it for 20 days. Yeah, I think it's a slightly extended HD version, so you'll be kind of getting a slightly more footage and it'll be a bit more refined than the DVD version I have here. So thanks for watching. Tell me what you thought of the video as well as the film itself. I'm in between, and I'll catch you in the next one.